building an empire, or certainly a very large company, or a company worth 50 million from scratch. And we're talking about that now with Brian Timperley and Louis Jardim. Brian, let's start with you. The company is Turrito, and in the information I have that they give us to prepare for these things, the telecommunications industry is not known for its excellent customer service. I want to say that's an understatement. I mean, they might have wonderful gadgets, wonderful ways of doing things, but you try and phone them to find out something, you can't get through. You go to these shops, they're packed with people, you have to wait for hours. So you must have seen a gap here. What was that gap?
We most certainly did, yeah. We were in the telecoms industry for quite a while. And while we were account managers, one of the big leading internet service providers. And during our time there, we really saw that if you're a big business, if you're a bank or someone like that, you get exceptional service delivery from the service providers because you're worth a lot of money to them. We found that the small to medium enterprise guys were really being neglected. So that was an area that we really wanted to focus on, deliver a layer of exceptional service delivery, and then not reinvent the wheel. They're great networks. We plugged into all of them. So our back end is every single network in the country, and we effectively took that to the small to medium enterprises and delivered a great level of service delivery to them.
So Louis, you started this business together, and one of the things you've mentioned is it has been all about timing. Do you think you would have been as successful had you come in at a different time? And how did you know it was the right time to start the business?
That's a good question. So Brian and I, being at a big blue chip for 4 years, we saw a massive gap in the market regarding service delivery. So at that stage, Brian and I saw a gap in the market, and we went out and started the business. We were also quite lucky and fortunate in terms of the timing, because the market was quite competitive at that stage where the smaller guys were being neglected. So Brian and I saw the gap in the market and went out and focused on the smaller guys.
Give me an example. The smaller guys, you talked about the back end and unifying the back end and the network. I mean, this is internal industry jargon.
Yeah.
I'm a small company. I wasn't getting good service. In other words, how bad was that service? What was happening to me for it to be bad service, and what did you do to fix it?
So just to give you a typical example, so the smaller guys generally have an account manager that has a customer base of about 150 customers. So generally the service delivery in terms of addressing billing queries, support queries, and that is quite problematic. So what we wanted to do is the same sort of credibility and service delivery that the big guys got, we wanted to give it to the smaller guys. So they would get that superior support, superior service delivery, and ensure that their network was prioritized end to end.
I want to talk about how you started your business. How did you get the funding? What did you do? We always hear stories about entrepreneurs, but very few people get the guts to go ahead and ask for funding. So,
and then they got to get the funding.
You still got to get the funding.
Exactly right.
So tell us, how did you do it?
Yeah, you know, for us, we spent initially about 3 weeks, and we were in 15 different investment meetings. So it really is about getting out there. We knocked on the doors of pretty much every investment house that we could get a referral to, everyone who knew someone. And it was actually the last 2 meetings that we had. Both of them ended up giving us an option for funding. So we ultimately went with the Micro Mega Group. They're a JSE listed business, and it was very important for us to get decent funders, because I think one of the big aspects of being an entrepreneur is that you need to be able to take substantial risk. And you know, if you're funding your own business, the risks that you tend to take are a little bit more subdued. When you have funders and backers, you can make some serious decisions, and from those very risky decisions came some of our greatest successes and greatest lessons when we didn't make the right ones, but we were given that opportunity.
So you have to sit there with a guy looking at you like this, saying, convince me, and then you don't. And you've got to walk out and say, now we've got to try again. So that's tough. I read an article by Yanni Mouton of PSG the other day. It was in the Sunday Times, I think. And he said, don't come to me with an idea if you want me to invest in your business. Come to me with a business. It might not be big. It might be just beginning, but at least it's a business.
Correct.
So what did you have to offer them? What did you say? Because you know they're busy men and women, and you got to get their attention.
Correct. I think one of the key factors that we got when we got investment from Micro Mega was the passion and drive that Brian has specifically for this industry. I think a lot of investment companies, you know, if you've got a great business idea, that's awesome, but you need the individuals to drive the business idea and concept. And I think if you have the passion and drive in order to succeed as a small entrepreneur, I think it made a massive difference in terms of Micro Mega investing in our business.
They would all say they've got passion and drive. You've got to give more. In the 10 minutes that you've got, what did you give them to persuade them?
Well, I mean, when we were in the presentation, I remember it quite clearly, because we were about 2 slides into what we were offering, and what we said to Micro Mega is that The guys who spend a lot of money, they get high access to skills, high access to industry leaders. The guys who spend very little get access to generics. They call a support center with 300 people who don't know your name. They don't know what you do. They ask you a million questions and then say, we'll transfer you. So when we showed them the slide of saying we wanted to migrate the small guys into the realm of being able to call someone who knew you, understood your network, and really gave you a very custom level of service. The owners of Micromega told us to stop, and they sat us down, and we thought, we're going to get another speech about, nice idea, but this is what you should do going forward. And they took us on a walk of their building, introduced us to a whole bunch of people, and the chief executive at the time, Greg Morris, sat down, wrote out an NDA, slid it in front of us, and said, I'd like to buy your business. And that was within 2 hours of us meeting with him. So, that was they saw the scalability of the business from that perspective.
And I think timing is also quite important in terms of where we are. We're at our last legs in terms of where we were, and finding Micromega in terms of our opportunities and ideas was absolutely awesome from a timing perspective. Yeah.
So, Louis, 4 years on, what have you learned?
So, perseverance, having Micromega as investors, you're able to make more riskier decisions and so forth. But I also think one of the key fundamentals is building a great team. I think when you're starting out as a small business, our whole ethos is all about service delivery. And building a team that shares that same ethos and values is important. Not everyone is service delivery orientated, and it's important that you get that sort of skill set within your organization in order to give the service delivery to your customers.
What about fighting with each other, disagreeing? After 1 year, you say this isn't quite what we expected it to be. Now there's a disagreement. You must have had disagreements.
We certainly have had disagreements, but surprisingly, very few of them. I mean, I think one of the things that we're very blessed with is that Louis and I have very different skill sets within the business, and where I'm not good, he's exceptional, and vice versa. So we've been very fortunate with that. There's times where I let Louis take the lead because it's really where his expertise lies, and times where he does the same. So we've been very fortunate. But when we have typically fought, it's I guess it's normally about breaching through those barriers. You'll hit certain points where you need to scale the business out. And the moment you do, you've got to make big decisions, and all of it involves a lot of money. So, in the times when we've had to really get into the details of it, it's always been about breaking through those barriers to the next level.
What about the regulatory environments? And there's been talk that there's so much red tape, and one of them is the BEE compliance. How are you doing there?
So fortunately enough, we are level 4 BE accredited, and like you said, the industry is super competitive. ICASA coming into the market, being part of a government portfolio is quite challenging. So what we have found is that we obviously focus on customer delivery to our end customers, and then based on that, we're able to provide the services that they require.
How many jobs have you created? The number 50 million is presumably the assets?
Yeah, it's our revenues on an annual basis. So we're a team of 25 people. We're still a relatively small business. We like to keep it that way. It's part of the way that we scale the business beautifully, is that we don't need the massive teams that build networks and infrastructure. We just plug into them, and then we have a small niche but very highly skilled team who manage the service delivery to our customers, and then we manage our suppliers on their behalf to run the network. So we'll always be able to sustain a relatively small team in our business. Yeah.
Where to from here?
So the next 4 years are super exciting for us. In the telecommunication space, there's a lot happening for customers. So for the next 4 years, we're looking at a couple of acquisitions, companies that will plug and play in terms of our service delivery and in terms of product offerings in that. And then we're also looking at growth opportunities within the African market, as well as new product strategies. We've just recently acquired a cloud-based business called Cloudware and CloudGate, and those are complementary services that we provide to our customers. And cloud's going to be super prominent within the next 3 to 4 years. Yeah.
A lot of clouds about today, so it's very dark outside.
That it is.
But that's not what you're talking about. Thanks to Brian Timperley and Louis Jardim from Turrito Networks.